Welcome to our gaming podcast. Today we're discussing the latest racing game, Japanese Drift Master. Joining me is expert gamer and reviewer, Phil Iwaniak. Phil, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Japanese Drift Master is indeed an exciting game, bursting with ideas and enthusiasm. But it's clear that the developers, Gaming Factory, are still working out some kinks.
That's right. I've read your review, and it seems like the game has a lot of potential, but it's not quite there yet. Can you tell us more about what you mean by kinks?
Well, for one, the game has some optimization issues, which can lead to chugging and frame rate drops. Additionally, there are some translation issues and awkward loading screens. But despite these problems, the game's physics model is solid, and the drift mechanics are spot on.
I've heard that the game has a strong focus on drift culture and its Japanese origins. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, the game is deeply rooted in Japanese drift culture, and it shows in the game's design, from the cars to the music to the anime-style comic panels. It's clear that the developers are passionate about the subject matter, and it shines through in the game's attention to detail.
That's great to hear. What about the game's open-world design and mission types? Do you think they add to the game's overall experience?
Absolutely. The game's open-world design and mission types are a major strength. The game offers a wide range of activities, from drift events to delivery runs, and each one is well-designed and fun to play. The game's generosity with unlocks and currency rewards is also a plus.
I see. Finally, what's your verdict on Japanese Drift Master? Do you think it's worth playing, despite its rough edges?
Yes, I do think it's worth playing. While the game is not perfect, its potential is clear, and I have no doubt that the developers will continue to polish and refine the game over the coming months. If you're a fan of racing games or drift culture, I definitely recommend checking it out. As you know, the game has been making waves in the racing community, but it's not without its flaws.
That's right. So, let's dive right in. What were your initial impressions of the game?
Well, I was initially excited by the game's promise of simcade controls and its initial D-inspired Eurobeat soundtrack. However, as I delved deeper into the game, I found that it fell short in several areas.
Can you elaborate on that? What specifically didn't meet your expectations?
One of the main issues I had was with the game's visuals. The grainy texture and low LOD made it difficult to appreciate the game's world. Additionally, the car tuning system was overly complex and required a lot of manual tweaking, which wasn't well explained.
That's a good point. I've also heard that the game's mission structure was a bit linear and repetitive. Can you comment on that?
Yes, that's correct. The missions felt like a series of small challenges strung together, with too much repetition and not enough variety. The drifting-based missions, in particular, felt like they were the only thing the game was interested in, which got old quickly.
I see. And what about the game's performance? I've heard that it had some technical issues.
Yes, unfortunately, the game's performance was a major letdown. I experienced frequent softlocks, slow loading times, and even some issues with the settings menu. It felt like the game was rushed out the door without proper optimization.
That's disappointing to hear. Finally, what would you say to our listeners who are considering purchasing JDM?
I would say that while JDM has some redeeming qualities, such as its charming use of manga for storytelling and its wide variety of songs, it ultimately falls short in several areas. If you're a fan of drifting and manga, you might enjoy it, but for others, I would recommend waiting for a patch or a more polished version. As a self-proclaimed non-racing game fan, I was pleasantly surprised by this title.
That's interesting. What drew you to JDM, and how did you find the gameplay?
The game's passion for Japanese drift culture is evident throughout. The driving model is highly demanding, which may deter some players, but it's incredibly rewarding once you get the hang of it.
I've heard that the game has a steep learning curve. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, the game has two control styles, arcade and simcade. I started with arcade, but switched to simcade, which I found more precise and enjoyable. The driving model is highly customizable, with a wealth of upgrades and customization options.
That sounds impressive. What about the game's content and variety?
There are three primary types of races: drift, grip, and drag. Each tests different skills, but you're initially limited to the story mode before accessing the variety of events. The Drift School is a great resource for practice and drills.
I've heard that the game's pacing can be an issue. Can you comment on that?
Yes, the pacing can be slow, especially in the early stages. However, the game's passion and attention to detail make up for it. The visuals and music are excellent, and the prefecture of Guntama is a joy to explore.
That's great to hear. Overall, what's your verdict on JDM, Japanese Drift Master?
While it's not perfect, JDM is a fantastic racing game that's well suited for fans of Japanese drift culture. Its charming story, difficult but rewarding handling model, and beautiful environments make it a must-play for enthusiasts.
Thanks, Ryan, for sharing your insights on JDM. If you're a fan of racing games or Japanese culture, this is definitely a title worth checking out.